lot of discussion about how to reconcile that. At the end of the day, Oakland took the lead, and San Francisco and San Jose then joined to accept the allocations, but accept the allocations with the understanding that with new discretionary funding, that those cities, it wasn't just those three, but those three primary ones, would be in a priority position to receive additional allocations for infrastructure improvements. For many jurisdictions, this is around transportation. For Oakland, it was about sewers. That's how complicated this process becomes. Oakland made it really clear. They would love to have the transportation money, but that's not where they need it. If they're going to accept this additional number, which doubled from 7,000 to about 15,000, that their need was replacing 120-year-old sewers. San Francisco has some of the same issues and concerns. San Jose's were a little bit different. At the end of the day, what really happened, if you look at the regional housing needs allocation process from the last time, most of the jurisdictions, other than those three large cities, received less numbers than they would have under the former method. And the trade-off was with new discretionary money, there would be funding for infrastructure improvements for those new cities. Next slide, please. Research and forecasting. This is the department at ABAG that does projections. We did the 2009 projections. Those were adopted by the executive board. As we have tried to explain in the past, but not with a lot of success, is that these are just that. They are projections. I do understand that those numbers are vetted by, viewed by, and considered by outside interests that could have impacts on the communities. ABAG is not in a position to impact or make land use decisions. Some of the things that we do and we encourage and we ask FTC to support in terms of funding, absolutely do influence that. But at the end of the day, ABAG has no land use authority, not in statute and not in practice. The projections look at various scenarios and ask the question, if we want to continue the pattern that we have today, which was generally agreed is not sustainable, then what would we have to look like in order to be sustainable? There are various scenarios that came forth to consider that, and then one scenario actually ended up in projections. But it is not the policy of the jurisdictions. It doesn't mandate you to do anything. There is really no meaningful way to measure and monitor most of the things that would have to happen. We got a lot of pushback about the 900 acres for greenfield development. ABAG did not on its own come up with that. That came through the consensus building and discussing with a lot of people at various committees. The fact of the matter is we have no way, and we know that no one who has any way, to monitor whether or not we reach the 900 acres, and if we exceed it, nobody has the power to stop any jurisdiction from going ahead and developing. It simply said that if we want to look like this, what this is, over a 25, 30-year period, then we should be trying to stay within that 900 acres. But it could have been 1,200 acres. It could have been 2,000 acres. And in the future, it will probably be some other number. We also do we provide a lot of data for the census. And the Census 2000 is coming up. We hold a lot of seminars to train local government officials in getting people to return the census information and then how to interpret the early data that we receive. One of the things that I did not say about the regional housing needs allocation process, the state gave the Bay Area 299,000 units. It was because of this unit, research and forecasting. We were able to convince the state that that number was grossly overstated. And we settled on a number with the state of 219,000. It's not the 299,000. Next slide, please. Bay Delta levies, you know a lot about. ABAG had an appointment to one of the Delta committees. Simon Arneson was our delegate to that committee. ABAG has a lot of interest in the levees, particularly with respect to their vulnerability to earthquakes. And I want to talk a little bit more about that when we get to earthquakes. But our concern is that when there is a major earthquake, that the delta is very vulnerable and absolutely disrupt water supply to the area. Next slide, please. San Francisco Estuary Partnership is a program that we started about 20 years ago now. A lot of our focus on the estuary is improving water quality and the natural resources of our estuaries. In Contra Costa County, we received for Pinole and Hercules Marsh and Creek Restoration $1 million from the EPA. For El Cerrito, $400,000 for Green Streets, Rain Gardens Project. For Contra Costa County, trash capture devices, $5 million, and funding for North Richmond Stormwater Overflow Sewage Treatment. Earthquakes. Next slide, please. We have been talking about the need for earthquake preparation and recovery for the last 30 years. We just had Senator Corbett, a former mayor of San Leandro, introduce legislation that would establish a Bay Area Restoration Authority. And it's not to deal with the immediate effects of an earthquake. It is to work on long-term recovery. When the Hayward Fault goes, we estimate that literally 137,000 dwelling units will be destroyed. How do we rebuild those? Where do we rebuild them? How do we put financing together? And it really requires the ongoing discussion and planning of people who are generally not engaged in emergency preparedness work. This really involves the mayors and the council members, the planning directors, the finance directors, to look at long-term recovery and building. Next slide, please. The Green Business Program is a program that we have over 800 private businesses and public agencies who have participated in this program to make their buildings green. Our program has been held up as a best practice. Los Angeles and Southern California have adopted green business programs as well. Next slide, please, and I'm getting towards the end. We have a number of service programs. One of them is an insurance program. 22 years ago or so, small jurisdictions particularly found it very difficult to find liability insurance in the private marketplace. ABAG established such an insurance program. That program now has about $50 million in reserves. We have 31 participating jurisdictions. We provide liability and property insurance, capital financing, and a number of other programs through ABAG plan. We also have an energy program that we established about 20 years ago. We were purchasing natural gas and electricity on behalf of some 39 participating members. We successfully sued PG&E about 5 years ago. We recovered about $20 billion on behalf of those participating jurisdictions. We got the last distribution of that money about 6 months ago, another $1,200,000 to participating members. We do more than we do. Financial services, next slide, please. We have issued over $10 billion of tax-exempt bond financings, serving as the conduit financing agency for multifamily housing, for senior housing, for senior care facilities, for Children's Hospital in Oakland, for private schools, and in fact there was financing that was done in Contra Costa. Actually it was done in Oakland, probably about 20 years ago. Next slide, please. Risk management, I already talked about. Power program, I talked about a little bit. Next slide. We just received a $10.5 million grant from EPA. It's available for residential retrofit for energy efficiency. We have an application pending with Southern California, $75 million from the federal government for a program that will complement this one. We have worked with the California State Communities Development Authority, CSCDA, which is an authority of the lead and of CSAC, California State Association of Counties, to do a region-wide, a statewide solar energy efficiency program. There's some technical problems with it. The marketplace is not participating with us right now because that has to be done on a taxable basis, but we think we'll hopefully be successful with that. Next slide, please. And the next one. And I just talked about the retrofit program, and I am done. I'm sorry that took so long, but I wanted you to hear and see that while everybody knows and associates us with greener projections, not much of what we do. Most of what we do are all other things I just wondered. I'd be happy to now answer any of your questions. I urged you to be direct, and I was told that I need to tell you that or remind you again to do that. I welcome your comments and your criticisms.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. This council has never had any problem being direct. Councilmember Conley. Mr. Gardner, you touched on the subject of the levee system in the Delta.
Yes.
And how catastrophic, or the implication was how catastrophic it could be with an earthquake affecting those levees. I've been very much involved in the water issues in California surrounding the Delta and beyond. And there's no question that we have to work on strengthening our levees. It's questionable whether earthquakes would ever affect them, because they never have affected them. But nonetheless, it seems to me that ABAG has been pretty much absent in this realm. You had pointed out, I'm doing what you asked, okay? Nothing personal.
That's right.
You know, you indicated several programs in the Inner Bay area that you received funding for. But I've been to the Capitol a number of times. I've been involved in various issues regarding the Delta. I haven't seen any representative from ABAG. In fact, I was up there today, whereas there's a bill, AB 2336, that in essence wants to destroy the striped bass population in the Bay Delta region. There wasn't anybody from ABAG there. Have I been missing something, or can you explain why, if I'm right, why ABAG hasn't been involved, and if they have been, maybe you can give me an update on that.
I am not aware of whether or not we had a representative at the hearing today. Our person who covers Delta issues is the same person who covers earthquake issues. It's the same as one person. Same person who covers hazard mitigation issues and has developed a hazard mitigation plan for multi-jurisdictions here in the Bay Area. We have had to insert ourselves in the discussion, quite frankly. We were active when the governor appointed the committee that Arnie was on, and we had to insist on having a representative on that committee. When that committee was reconstituted, of course, then we lost our seat on that committee. We have been raising issues about the Delta, not only with respect to the potential of an earthquake. You're right, an earthquake has never done that. I'm not sure that the evidence is conclusive that that would not be a result if there were a catastrophic earthquake. The Public Policy Institute did a study about 2 years ago and made comments about the potential of earthquake and the failure of some of the levees, especially some of the weaker ones. But we've had to insert ourselves in the Delta discussion. I don't know if the General Assembly, if the Executive Board has taken a position on that legislation. As I stand here, I just don't know the answer. But I'd be surprised if we haven't.
Well, actually, that was one very small piece of legislation that's occurred over recent times. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but there are some entities in the Central Valley in Southern California that have been spending millions of dollars to destroy the Delta in the effort to get more water moving south. And most of the effort in combating this has been voluntary. It's been a mass of volunteers, and very little northern or Bay Area Delta governments have gotten involved. And I'm very disturbed by that, because the goings on in the state capitol are just outrageous. In fact, the actual authors of AB 2336 was the Westlands Water District and Metropolitan Water District, both of minority interest in the water, but majority funding of getting it. And some of these things that they go through, they're going to destroy our estuary, and we're all a part of that. And maybe you can Maybe we can work some more and talk some more.
I'd like to talk to you some more about that. Let me just conclude with this comment. The committee that I referred to, that Arnie was a member of, I remember pretty much the representation on that committee. It was a very large committee. It had about 60-some people, as I recall. Actually, the Bay Area was proportionately represented on that committee. And there's been a lot of consternation actually coming from the Bay Area about legislation that was put together at the end of the last session, which a lot of people criticized as having been done in secrecy. It was more around water, but it absolutely dealt as well. But the Bay Area has an abiding interest in what happens to the Delta.
Well, absolutely, and congratulations on the new pumping plant up on the Sacramento River.
Councilmember Rios.
Ms. Willis, this is a real quick question for you. When we go through our, to be certified in our housing element of the general plan, is the ABAG numbers the numbers that we are required to use for that
Yes.
certification?
Yes.
That's great. With that, I want to make a comment. We have always had a certified housing element in our general plan, and I understand through your comments that Oakland, San Francisco, and San Jose have not, and they are getting priority funding for becoming compliant to that. Do you, as ABAG, have in the future some type of recognition for cities that are compliant, that have certified housing elements? Where is the recognition for cities that are compliant? Do we get bonuses? Is there some kind of recognized funding for us? As I said, we've always had a certified housing element.
There are no bonuses currently that the state, well, actually the state does, actually it's pointed directly. The Bay Area has the Oakland, San Francisco, and San Jose included in that. Their housing elements eventually have all been certified. The Bay Area has the highest rate of certified housing elements of any region in the state. And that cuts both ways. Because we have such a high rate of compliance, people think that, it's ABAG that's beating up on people and making them do it, which is not the case. I think that most of the cities, the legislation, the mandate notwithstanding, I find that most cities would be doing a lot of what's required anyway. And that's the reason it's said when I was with Oakland. And they were paying attention to it because the things that we were doing were all in compliance with what they wanted us to do in any event. There has been discussion about bonuses, that there should be some, not only recognition, but there should be some monetary reward. And Housing and Community Development, State Housing and Community Development, has been considering how do you direct, and they say that, and they do it indirectly, quite frankly, because a lot of the programs that come through HCD, you do get bonus points for having a certified housing element, and you see some of the same suspects getting the money. Those have been not all large urban areas. I did work closely with HCD a couple of rounds back, and there were some areas that, there weren't the big urban areas that got all the money. But I think that's worth continuing to advocate for, that there be one specific recognition, but then the only recognition that really matters is to then put some money behind some of the projects.
And my last comment, you've indicated that, ABAG's not making us do this, and that there is no land use authority by ABAG, but failure to comply with the allocation mandates would cause what?
But that's not ABAG. ABAG has no.
But what would happen if we didn't?
But let me be clear. ABAG does not require you doing that.
I understand that.
ABAG's not required.
So if we don't,
Yes.
isn't there funding that would be either restricted, frozen, removed, taken away if we did not?
Not yet.
Not by ABAG.
Yes. And not yet, even by the state. But state has considered doing that.
Yes.
That they would direct money that might have otherwise gone to jurisdictions that fail to comply,
Right.
to jurisdictions that do comply. And that's a very good point. The real consequence actually has been the lawsuits, quite honestly. The real consequence has been the lawsuits. Some of the housing, low and moderate income housing advocates have successfully sued jurisdictions for failure to have certified housing elements. Pleasanton was sued in a superior court, that we appealed, so it's not defended yet, but they were successfully sued in superior court. And their lawsuit was, they lost on the grounds that they had set a cap on their population growth. And the judge said that by doing so, there was no way they could ever faithfully certify their housing element to be the future
So
growth.
no matter what, down the line, there is a negative financial impact for not,
I think
in
that's true.
some way, shape, or form.
Yes, yes. And what, if I, just one thing, if I can say this. And I think that's where, I think that's where we could really make some improvement, and we've argued this with ACH. I don't know, and I've said this publicly, so I can say it here, I don't know that it makes sense, quite honestly, to require every single city to have a housing allocation. I don't. I really think we could develop more housing, more appropriate housing, if we could focus on the jurisdictions that, number one, want to do it, have the political will to do it, have the land to do it, give them the resources to do it. I've often said that it's a waste of time for me to keep going back and forth to Belvedere about their 3 units. I need to be spending time with Hayward trying to figure out how to get them some money to develop the housing that they want to develop.
And if we could
There's
get
a
all of the
disconnect there.
entities working together so that one doesn't take funding away for not doing another thing, it certainly would
And
help.
we spend a lot of political will, we spend a lot of goodwill arguing on this.
Yes. Did you have one more comment? Well, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, and I did tell your city manager, you know how to call me at ABAG, but I'm also listed in the Oakland telephone directory, and I respond to all calls. Your involvement and continued participation means a lot to us. We have a General Assembly coming up on April 22nd, and we're really trying to get as many elected officials as we can, because we're going to be talking about 375 and sustainable communities, and we need to hear your voice. Not everybody believes that we need to do all the stuff that people are talking about. And some think that we need to do it in certain areas, we shouldn't do it in other areas, there are different approaches to it, and all of those voices need to be heard and need to be respected.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And you were very, very kind.
We're moving on to the consent calendar. If you wish to address any item, you need to get a blue card up to me with the item number on it before I start in this. So we have a couple of items on the consent calendar. And, oh, I moved through the public comments. I went right over there. So public comments, pardon me. Denise, did you want to do public comments or the item and the consent calendar? Yes, ma'am. So Denise Morford.
Hello, yeah, my name is Denise Morford. I'm the vice chair of the Stockholm Wood Committee.
Address?
My address is 454. Tonight, I just want to put a number out there. 68,000. 68,000 is a large number of homes. It will almost double the current number that exists in Oakley. As I drive around the city, I imagine what this will look like, and I'm very saddened. I envision the crowded schools, the traffic problems that will come. I am worried. I'm particularly worried about the density of the developments that are lurking in our future. The land use element of the general plan describes building intensity and population density and the expectations of the citizens of Oakland. Also, that the city should enhance neighborhoods around Oakley, establish parks in these neighborhoods, and protect the varied remaining agricultural activities in Oakley, while ensuring the strong physical connection to the Delta. After the last vote by the city council on the proposed Rosewood Estates, I question if you really listened to the expectations of the citizens in Oakley. We requested the development be reduced to medium density, and the new site plan is not even at the lowest of high density. We expressed concerns over the parking at Laurel Fields, and you're going to be willing to accept an additional 0.30 acres for this. I went to the park and saw the parking lot full, the overflow of 30 to 40 cars on 3 consecutive days there. I don't see how 3.3 acres will provide parking for all the additional cars during activities at that field. For every house we build, there's a new car put on the road while people commute to other parts of the Bay Area to work. The more people, the greater the impact on the Delta and the surrounding environment. Removing agricultural and open space by adding these high-density developments will not enhance the quality of living here. Instead of approving this rezone, the council should recognize that it's a violation of the election code to proceed with the rezone. And proceed with this rezone within the 1 year of prior rezone repeal. And instead, you should start planning a general plan review so the public can speak to the size of Oakley that you are planning for. If you proceed with the rezone, we, the Committee for Stop Rosewood, will be proceeding with another petition. Listen to the people of Oakley. The respect you earn from us will be here for a long time. Thank developers lead.
Thank you. Debbie Retzloff. Debbie, you want to do public comment or the item on the consent? I don't want to confuse you. Okay. Thank you. Please state your name and address.
My name is Debbie Retzloff. Well, I have to say I'm frustrated and totally disappointed in the acceptance by the council to consider a new proposal by the builder regarding the Rosewood property that isn't close to what it should be. And in fact, today, we'll probably adopt an ordinance rezoning the property to R6. I believe we clearly showed via petition that high density was not what we wanted. You clearly aren't listening. It baffles me on why you're not listening, and now I guess in the absence of anything else, I just believe you're not listening because you think you can't not listen. It takes time and effort to coordinate a volunteer group, and maybe you think that will fizzle up and go away. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not over. We aren't going away. We, the people, want responsible growth. We want Oakley to remain rural in nature. We want quality. And we will continue, in essence, to fight City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have no more public comment cards. So with that, I will move on to 3.0, the consent calendar. And again, if you wish to speak, make sure I have your blue card forward. So consent calendar. I will be pulling 3.2. I would also like to pull 3.3. Are there any other pulls?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the remainder of the consent calendar. Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then we will go to 3.2, which is to waive the second reading and adopt an ordinance rezoning the property located at 4073 Rose Avenue, identified as APN number 035-220-032 within the city of Oakley, from general agricultural A2 zone district to a single-family residential R6 zone district. With that, I have a couple of speaker cards, and I will allow them the opportunity to speak on a consent item agenda. Please understand the public hearing is closed, but you may still speak on this as a consent item. So
Funds that would be doled out only to those agencies that are complying with these laws. So I understand your frustration, but frankly, that's what we're involved with.
Okay, back to CBH. Since they own the still have an agreement with them that we have at least 80, 100 feet worth of buffer there that will not be built on?
We have, yes, we have an agreement. CBH bought the property. That buffer area is still zoned single family because that piece was never rezoned. So it didn't expand the affordable housing overlay density, but it does put it within their control. And we have had representatives from CBH actually during the parcel map hearing agree to not put buildings in that buffer area and to landscape it, move the oak trees in there, you know, have a walking trail so the kids could walk to the school in Live Oak. So that area is within their control, and it will be used as an amenity as opposed to, you know, putting apartments closer to the residential neighborhood.
Councilmember Anderson.
Well, I'm partially happy that we have so many things already met. I'm trying to find the good here. And that in the big picture, there's only 88 that we need to go through. What I would like, if we could put back up on the screen, you offered 3 suggestions of where we could go to meet this, and I just have a couple of questions about those. Do you want to take the questions from the audience first, Madam Mayor?
Yeah. I got it in a moment, and I have 2 speaker cards. Don, sure? Oh, and do you want to go before?
Anytime, doesn't matter. I'll go at the end.
Okay, your choice.
No, please, here.
Okay, Don, come on out. I'm sorry, we I'm looking and forgot about that. But we got that opportunity.
Don Shear, 2974 Terrabury Lane. You know, I think having heard this discussion, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir at this point. When I was looking at these figures the gentleman was presenting, the state requirements, I thought there's a tremendous disconnect here. We have bureaucrats in Sacramento and legislators telling us stuff. It's like the Soviet Union. They're planning what we should do, and it may have no basis in reality. Maybe none of these kind of people want to live in Oakley that would fit into these apartments. It just reminds me of the Soviet Union. I guess the way to really fix this is to throw out some of the legislators we got up there doing these dumb things, but that's a long-term project. I also feel, though, maybe somebody touched on it in this discussion already, but I began to have a feeling that maybe Oakley is being put upon, and we're trying to be good scouts and good citizens here and comply with all this stuff. You know, I had a question. What are other communities like Moraga and Lafayette and Danville and Alamo? Are they burdened with apartments that look to me like something that was built by Stalin? I don't think so. How did they get out from under it? Or did they just drag their feet and ignore it? Maybe if we really feel strongly about this, we should just drag our feet and maybe we won't get some grants. But I think there's a time when you have to take a stand on these things. This, as you folks all know, this is tremendously controversial and unpopular with many people in town. And maybe it's time we say, look guys, we're going to drag our feet on this, and if we can't get some state grants, maybe we don't get it. Or maybe you guys go to jail, I don't know. But I kind of feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but I really think it's time to take a stand on this stuff. And maybe take some risks. Maybe we won't get some grant 15 years from now. Maybe none of us will care anyway at that point. Okay, I think I've made my point. I'll sit down now. Okay.
Thank you.
After what I've heard, I don't know that anything that I wrote or wanted to say is going to matter.
Okay, but if you could just state your name and your address.
Kathy Summers, 511 Windsor Court in Oakley. Anyway, like I said, I don't know that what I'm going to say written down is going to matter because it doesn't sound like there's anything that can be done, which is very disappointing, and to say the least. I would like to believe that the council wasn't aware of how many units were going to be put there, and I kind of wonder how you couldn't know unless they just deliberately didn't tell you. I'm confused by that. Yeah, that's what I mean, but how could you not know about that? I mean, don't tell you about it, or it's just kept in the dark? Yeah, okay. Anyway, so on that note, that being said, I would like to request that you guys do whatever it takes to not allow any more units on that property. I'm not against low-income housing at all. I know we need it. My opposition is to being so many on that one property. You know, I live right behind it, and I've already noticed negative impacts around the area. I walk my dogs late at night. I'm afraid to do that. And I think that part of it is because of, you know, certain elements that have moved into the area. I don't believe that that structure has helped that at all. And I also think that it's impacted traffic. And anyway, so I'm just pleading with you to do what you have to, and I agree with Dawn. If you have to say no, and see what happens. I mean, like you said, take a stand. We got to fight for something. We have to believe in something. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to?
If you have questions, fine.